Today, the Trump administration announced new sanctions against 7 Russian oligarchs with ties to President Vladimir Putin. New York Times correspondent Gardiner Harris has been tracking this story. In fact, he did the story for the Times today. Joins me now from Washington. The headline being Trump administration imposes new sanctions on Putin cronies. Gardiner, who's the subject of these? Who's getting sanctioned?
Well, there were 7 top oligarchs of Russia, and what's remarkable about this list is just how close many of these people are to Putin personally. You know, the list includes Putin's son-in-law, who happens to be estranged from his daughter, but nonetheless is a member of the family. It also includes some very close friends of his, including Vladimir Bogdanov, who owns a private oil company that rumors are he gave much of the ownership stake to Mr. Putin himself. It even includes, what's really interesting, Carole, is that it even includes the son of Vladimir Putin's former judo partner, who now owns, of course, his own huge corporations that have gotten a lot of contracts in Russia, including a contract to build a bridge to Crimea, which is the Black Sea Peninsula that Putin seized in 2014. So, you know, what is remarkable about this list is just how close it comes to Vladimir Putin. You know, Putin has for years said that family members and his close friends are off limits to any investigation. He shut down an entire media company when they suggested that his kids had a lot of money. He really protects his privacy enormously, and this list goes right at him. Okay, so how hard-hitting are the sanctions? Well, so the sanctions are very hard-hitting. You know, the use of sanctions by the United States has become sort of the favored tool of what's known as sort of hybrid warfare or tough diplomacy, because they really can be very tough. You know, obviously it was the very tough unified sanctions of the West that brought Iran to the negotiating table for its nuclear program. And what these do is basically, first of all, none of these people will be able to travel to the United States. Second of all, they will not be able to have any business with any major corporation in the West or any major bank in the West, because basically what the U.S. does is says to all companies that have any dealings in the United States, if you want to come to the United States and have any business here, fine, but you cannot have any business with anyone or any company that is on this list. So, you know, it has sort of these two effects of sort of penalizing these people potentially, but also forcing them, of course, to become that much closer to Putin. Most people believe that the price of pushing them toward Putin is worth paying because they're already very close to him. So it is widely seen as a very effective effort, and the Russians are very concerned about this. You know, the reason the Russians tried to have a meeting with President Trump just before he became president was precisely to talk about these sort of sanctions measures that particularly rose out of what's known as the Magnitsky Act. Yeah. These sanctions really trouble the Russian elite. And so it's a significant action today. Okay, so that raises the question: what does Vladimir Putin do? Is this an escalation that he can accept? Is it going to have the desired results, or is he going to raise the stakes? Right. So the Russian Foreign Ministry came out today with a statement saying that you can expect a harsh response from Russia. It's not, you know, obviously the Russians have responded very aggressively to the set of sanctions that the West imposed in recent days against Russia diplomatically. You know, 20 countries expelled more than 100 Russian diplomats. There were 60 diplomats expelled from the United States, 23 from Britain, and in each case, Russia responded in kind, expelling 60 American diplomats and 23 British ones, as well as diplomats of all of these other countries. But it's a much tougher response for him to make when it comes to these sort of sanctions, because of course Russia itself is not at the center of the financial universe in the way that the United States is. One concern here is the Trump administration did not coordinate these sanctions with the European Union. Obviously, the Trump administration has somewhat less fulsome of dealings with the European Union than the Obama administration. But clearly, all of these sanctions are part of isolating what has become a fairly aggressive regime in Russia. You know, obviously, Putin has military operations now in Georgia and Ukraine. Russian mercenaries directly attacked American troops in Syria. He's at least offering tacit support to the chemical bombing that Bashar al-Assad has done in Syria. And of course, there was the poisoning just recently in England with a nerve agent. So there is a real sense in Washington, if not directly in the Oval Office, President Trump himself has this sort of strange relationship with Putin where he's trying to be nice to him, but all of official Washington, other than President Trump, is moving very much toward an aggressive posture toward the Kremlin. All
right, well, we'll see what happens next. Gardiner Harris, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carole.
Gardiner Harris is the State Department correspondent for the New York Times.